Chapter 3 The Ape in Its Glory. Master Horse, said Tyrion as he hastily cut its traces. How came these aliens to enslave you? Is Narnia conquered? Has there been a battle? No, sire, panted the horse. Aslan is here. It's all by his orders. He has commanded. Where danger, king, said Jewel. Tyrion looked up and saw that Calormenes, mixed with a few talking beasts, were beginning to run toward them from every direction. The two dead men had died without a cry, and so it had taken a moment before the rest of the crowd knew what had happened. But now they did. Most of them had naked scimitars in their hand. Or scimitars, not sure how to pronounce that. Quick, on my back, said Jewel. The king flung himself astride of his old friend, who turned and galloped away. He changed direction twice or thrice as soon as they were out of sight of their enemies, crossed a stream and shouted without slackening his pace. Whither away, sire? To Cair Paravel. Hold hard, friend, said Tyrion. Let me off. He slid off the unicorn's back and faced him. Jewel, said the king, we have done a dreadful deed. We were sorely provoked, said Jewel, but to leap on them unawares without defying them while they were unarmed, faugh. We are two murderers, Jewel. I am dishonored forever. Jewel drooped his head. He too was ashamed. And then, said the king, the horse said it was by Aslan's orders. The rat said the same. They all say Aslan is here. How if it were true? But, sire, how could Aslan be commanding such dreadful things? He is not a tame lion, said Tyrion. How should we know what he would do? We who are murderers. Jewel, I will go back. I will give up my sword and put myself in the hand of these Calormenes and ask that they bring me before Aslan. Let him do justice on me. You will go to your death then, said Jewel. Do you think I care if Aslan dooms me to death, said the king. That would be nothing at all. Would it not be better to be dead than to have this horrible fear that Aslan has come and is not like the Aslan we have believed in and longed for? It is as if the sun rose one day and were a black sun. I know, said Jewel, or as if you drank water and it were dry water. You are in the right, sire. This is the end of all things. Let us go and give ourselves up. There is no need for both of us to go. If ever we loved one another, let me go with you now, said the unicorn. If you are dead, and if Aslan is not Aslan, what life is left for me? They turned and walked back together, shedding bitter tears. As soon as they came to the place where the work was going on, that the Calormenes raised a cry and came toward them with their weapons in hand. But the king held out his sword with the hilt toward them and said, I, who is king of Narnia and am now a dishonored knight, give myself up to the justice of Aslan. Bring me before him. And I too give myself up, said Jewel. Then the dark men came round them in a thick crowd, smelling of garlic and onions, their white eyes flashing dreadfully in their brown faces. They put a rope halter around Jewel's neck. They took the king's sword away and tied his hands behind his back. One of the Calormenes, who had a helmet instead of a turban and seemed to be in command, snatched the gold circlet off Tyrion's head and hastily put it away somewhere among his clothes. They led the two prisoners uphill to a place where there was a big clearing, and this was what the prisoners saw. At the center of the clearing, which was also the highest point of the hill, there was a little hut like a stable with a thatched roof. Its door was shut. On the grass in front of the door there sat an ape. Tyrion and Jewel, who had been expecting to see Aslan and had heard nothing about an ape yet, were very bewildered when they saw it. The ape was of course Shift himself, but he looked 10 times uglier than when he lived by Cauldron Pool, for he was now dressed up. He was wearing a scarlet jacket which did not fit him very well, having been made for a dwarf. He had jeweled slippers on his hind paws, which would not stay on properly because, as you know, the hind paws of an ape are really like hands. He wore what seemed to be a paper crown on his head. There was a great pile of nuts beside him, and he kept cracking nuts with his jaws and spitting out the shells. And he also kept on pulling up the scarlet jacket to scratch himself. A great number of talking beasts stood facing him, and nearly every face in that crowd looked miserably worried and bewildered. When they saw who the prisoners were, they all groaned and whimpered. "O Lord Shift, mouthpiece of Aslan," said the chief Calormen, "we bring you prisoners. By our skill and courage, and by the permission of the great god Tosh, we have taken alive these 2 desperate murderers." "Give me that man's sword," said the ape. So they took the king's sword and handed it, with the sword belt and all, to the monkey, and he hung it round his own neck, and it made him look sillier than ever. "We'll see about those 2 later," said the ape, spitting out a shell in the direction of the 2 prisoners. "I got some other business first. They can wait. Now listen to me, everyone. The first thing I want to say is about the nuts. Where's that head squirrel got to?" "Here, sir," said a red squirrel, coming forward and making a nervous little bow. "Oh, you are you?" said the ape with a nasty look. "Now attend to me. Aslan wants some more nuts. These you've brought aren't anything like enough. You must bring some more, do you hear? Twice as many, and they've got to be here by sunset tomorrow, and there mustn't be any bad ones or any small ones among them." A murmur of dismay ran through the other squirrels, and the head squirrel plucked up courage to say, "Please, would Aslan himself speak to us about it, if we might be allowed to see him?" "Well, you won't," said the ape. "He may be very kind, though it's a lot more than most of you deserve, and come out for a few minutes tonight. Then you can all have a look at him, but he will not have you all crowding round him and pestering him with questions. Anything you want to say to him will be passed on through me. If I think it's worth bothering him about, in the meantime, all you squirrels had better go and see about the nuts, and make sure they are here by tomorrow evening, or, my word, you'll catch it." The poor squirrels all scampered away as if a dog were after them. This new order was terrible news for them. The nuts they had carefully hoarded for the winter had nearly all been eaten by now, and of the few that were left, they had already given the ape far more than they could spare. Then in a deep voice, it belonged to a great tusked and shaggy boar, spoke from another part of the crowd. "But why can't we see Aslan properly and talk to him?" it said. "When he used to appear in Narnia in the old days, everyone could talk to him face to face." "Don't you believe it?" said the ape. "And even if it was true, times have changed. Aslan says he's been far too soft with you before. Do you see? Well, he isn't going to be soft anymore. He's going to lick you into shape this time. He'll teach you to think he's a tame lion." A low moaning and whimpering was heard among the beasts, and after that a dead silence, which was more miserable still. "And now there's another thing you've got to learn," said the ape. "I hear some of you are saying that I'm an ape. Well, I'm not. I'm a man. If I look like an ape, that's because I'm so very old, hundreds and hundreds of years old. And it's because I'm so old that I'm so wise. And it's because I'm so wise that I'm the only one Aslan is ever going to speak to. He can't be bothered talking to a lot of stupid animals. He'll tell me what you've got to do, and I'll tell the rest of you. And take my advice, and see you do it in a double quick time, for he doesn't mean to stand any nonsense." There was dead silence, except for the noise of a very young badger crying, and its mother trying to make it keep quiet. "And now, here's another thing," the ape went on, fitting a fresh nut into its cheek. "I hear some of the horses are saying, 'Let's hurry up and get this job of carting timber over as quickly as we can, and then we'll be free again.' Well, you can get that idea out of your heads at once. And not only the horses either. Everybody who can work is going to be made to work in the future. Aslan has it all settled with the king of Calormen, the Tisroc, as our dark-faced friends here the Calormens call him. All you horses and bulls and donkeys are to be sent down into Calormen and work for your living, pulling and carrying the way horses and such like do in other countries. And all you digging animals like moles and rabbits and dwarves are going down to work in the Tisrock's mines. And no, 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 howled the beasts. It can't be true. Aslan would never sell us into slavery to the king of Calormen. None of that. Hold your noise, said the ape with a snarl. Who said anything about slavery? You won't be slaves. You'll be paid. Very good wages, too. That is to say, your pay will be paid into Aslan's treasury, and he will use it all for everybody's good. Then he glanced and almost winked at the chief Calormen. Calormen bowed and replied in the pompous Calormen way. Most sapient mouthpiece of Aslan, the Tisrock, may he live forever, is wholly of one mind, and your lordship in this judicious plan. There, you see, said the ape. It's all arranged, and all for your own good. We'll be able, with the money you earn, to make Narnia a country worth living on. There'll be oranges and bananas pouring in, and roads and big cities and schools and offices and whips and muzzles and saddles and cages and kennels and prisoners and prisons. Oh, everything. But we don't want all those things, said an old bear. We want to be free, and we want to hear Aslan speak himself. Now, don't you start arguing, said the ape, for it's a thing I won't stand. I'm a man. You're only a fat, stupid old bear. What do you know about freedom? You think freedom means doing what you like. Well, you're wrong. That isn't true freedom. True freedom means doing what I tell you. Huh, grunted the bear and scratched its head. It found this sort of thing hard to understand. Please, please, said the high voice of a woolly lamb, who was so young that everyone was surprised he dared speak at all. What is it now? Said the ape. Be quick. Please, said the lamb, I can't understand. What have we to do with the Calormenes? We belong to Aslan. They belong to Tosh. They have a god called Tosh. They say he has 4 arms and the head of a vulture. They kill men on his altar. I don't believe there's any such person as Tosh, but if there was, how could Aslan be friends with him? All the animals cocked their heads sideways, and all their bright eyes flashed toward the ape. They knew it was the best question anyone had yet asked. The ape jumped up and spat at the lamb. Baby, he hissed, silly little bleeder. Go home to your mother and drink milk. What do you understand of such things? But the others, listen. Tosh is only another name for Aslan. All that old idea of us being right and the Calormenes wrong is silly. We know better now. The Calormenes use different words, but we all mean the same thing. Tosh and Aslan are only 2 different names for you-know-who. That's why there can never be any quarrel between them. Get that into your heads, you stupid brutes. Tosh is Aslan. Aslan is Tosh. You know how sad your own dog's face can look sometimes? Think of that, and think of all the faces of those talking beasts. All those honest, humble, bewildered birds, bears, badgers, rabbits, moles, and mice. All far sadder than that. Every tail was down, every whisker drooped. It would have broken your heart with very pity to see their faces. There was only one who did not look at all unhappy. It was a ginger cat, a great big Tom in the prime of life, who sat bolt upright with his tail curled around his toes in the very front row of all the beasts. He had been staring hard at the ape and the Calormene captain all the time and had never once blinked his eyes. Excuse me, said the cat very politely, but this interests me. Does your friend from Calormene say the same? Assuredly, said the Calormene. The enlightened ape, man, is in the right. Aslan means neither less nor more than Tosh. Especially Aslan means no more than Tosh, suggested the cat. No more at all, said the Calormene, looking the cat straight in the face. "Is that good enough for you, Ginger?" said the ape. "Oh, certainly," said Ginger coolly. "Thank you very much. I only wanted to be quite clear. I think I am beginning to understand." Up till now the king and Jewel had said nothing. They were waiting until the apes should bid them speak, for they thought it was no use interrupting. But now, as Tyrion looked round on the miserable faces of the Narnians, and saw how they would all believe that Aslan and Tosh were one and the same, he could bear it no longer. "Ape," he cried with a great voice, "you lie damnably. You lie like a Calormene. You lie like an ape." He meant to go on and ask how terrible the god Tosh, who fed on the blood of his people, could possibly be the same as the good lion by whose blood all Narnians was saved. If he had been allowed to speak, the rule of the ape might have ended that day. The beast might have seen the truth and thrown the ape down. But before they could say another word, two Calormenes struck him in the mouth. Before he could say another word, two Calormenes struck him in the mouth with all their force, and a third from behind kicked his feet from under him. And as he fell, the ape squealed in a rage and terror. "Take him away, take him away, take him where he cannot hear us, nor we hear him. There, tie him to a tree. I mean Aslan will, do justice upon him later."